Hi, welcome aboard. I don't think it's any secret to regular viewers of Leisure World how much I believe in the Honda range of four-stroke outboard motors. And I have a number of reasons, both obvious and a little more subtle, for believing in them. Obviously, they are more environmentally friendly, they're far easier to live with as far as the owner of the outboard is concerned. Their fuel consumption is quite astonishingly low compared with the equivalent horsepower two-stroke. And the introduction of these engines about 2 years ago sent ripples right throughout the Australian marine industry, and in spite of the fact that back in those days there was a considerable price premium to be paid by people who bought Hondas, they still have made huge inroads into the overall Australian outboard scene. Now, from a business political point of view, that has upset quite a lot of people. And we've seen some huge discount campaigns on the part of the two-stroke manufacturers trying to get their prices even further under Honda. As Honda's prices come down, so the two-strokes have gone down further. And then we've also seen some campaigns of misinformation on the part of people who sell two-strokes and also on the part of people who service two-strokes to endeavour to discourage people from buying the four-strokes. Now, that seems to me to be a little silly because a number of the major two-stroke manufacturers are also moving into four-stroke outboard motors, and there's no reason to believe that their products are going to be significantly different from Honda's, but Honda's lead the market, so therefore they've been the subject of this little campaign. Now, among the myths that have been put about are that Hondas are more complicated than the two-strokes, so therefore they're less reliable. Hondas, because they're more complicated, are more expensive to maintain, and Hondas are heavier and they have less performance. Now, we're in Honda Automotive Division's workshop here in Brisbane, right on the Brisbane River actually, and Gary Marks, who is Honda's northern representative, Queensland, Northern New South Wales, for their marine products, is with us. Marksy and I are going to go through this 90 horsepower Honda and endeavour to sort of offset some of those myths by showing you just how easy it is to service and to live with a Honda outboard motor. Now, we're not suggesting that some of these things that we'll be doing can be done in the home workshop. What we are saying that there are a lot of things that an owner can do in order to extend the appearance and the external appearance, particularly of his outboard motor, to make sure that it's properly lubricated and to make sure that it's running perfectly for him all the time, and we'll be showing you those. Now, Marks, you were saying that the technology in this power head is pretty well known and understood.
Yeah, the technology we see here is automotive technology background. It has been around for quite some time. There's nothing new or hard about it.
Or radical or sort of high technology.
There's no high-tech gear in it at all. The dry sump system has been around quite some time. Carburetion's been around a long time. Electronic ignition, overhead cam, that's all proven technology. All
right, well, we'll look at the cam drive belt in a minute, but this is the induction side of the engine, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbies.
We've got 4 carbies, 1 per cylinder.
Right, now just tell us how this plenum works and how all that happens.
The air cleaner is an energy absorbing sound deadener. You'll find it's full of like honeycomb system to cut down a lot of the intake noise, which does generate a fair bit of noise.
Yes.
Yep. The carburation, even though it is looks like motorcycle, but it has been designed for marine purpose because you've got a lot of salt,
yes,
a lot of corrosion purposes.
So it cleans the air before it gets into the actual engine.
It will. It'll stop a lot of the spray getting in as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we've got 4 induction manifolds there, obviously. What about the overhead gear on the engine? Now, we're going to pull the tappet cover, the cam cover in a minute, and have a look inside there. But that's fairly standard overhead valve, overhead cam technology, isn't it?
Yes, it's been around a long time. That technology is back in the 80s, early 80s. Just a single overhead cam, 3 valves per cylinder.
Okay, so, all right, well, let's pull the cover and have a look at what goes on inside and maybe have a look at a tappet adjust exercise and that sort of thing. Okay, now we've removed the 4 spark plugs so that we can easily turn the engine over. We've undone the bolts that hold the plastic rocker cover on in a sequence which avoids distorting the cover. In other words, from the outside towards the centre. When they're done back up again, they're done from the centre towards the outside. And we've exposed the overhead gear. Now, Marksy, can you describe what's happening in here?
Okay, what we've got here is 2 inlet valves and 1 exhaust valve, and you always find that the inlet side of things is inlet valve is always larger, so we've got 2 small diameter valves which will actually cause a swirling effect to get a better burn pattern, and then it discharges itself out through the exhaust valve.
Right. Now what about maintenance of the top end of the engine here?
It's just basic maintenance. You've got a lock nut and a screw type thread adjuster. Just get it on compression stroke, and you set the tappet up when the clearance is correct.
Right, using a feeler gauge?
Using feeler gauges, yeah.
Right, can you show us that happening?
Not a problem.
Now we've taken the timing case cover off, which is a plastic moulding on the top of the engine. That covers the alternator here and also the cam drive pulley along with the cam belt. Now that enables us to turn the engine over to adjust all of the tappets. Now Gary, obviously you've got to look at the timing belt tension. How do you check that?
It's a very simple process, Chris. All you've got to do is turn the flywheel round till all the slack is taken out on the long side of the cam belt.
Right.
And just inside here, you line up one of these holes. You've got a little black cap. If you pop that little black cap up, you'll find there's a bolt inside.
Yes.
And you loosen that bolt off, and the little tensioner here is spring loaded, so it's at the right tension, and that actually takes the slack out of the belt.
Right.
And all you do is loosen the nut off, tighten it back up again, replace the plastic cap.
And it's done.
It's done.
Now what happens if somebody doesn't do that, doesn't have their engine serviced and the tappets do get out of adjustment? What about the running of the engine?
Well, there's 2 scenarios. Is if the valve adjustment does close down, you're going to have a burnt valve situation, and it'll be poor performance.
But you'll know because you can hear it.
Oh yes, certainly so.
Yeah.
And the other scenario is if it loosens itself off slightly, you're going to hear a tappet noise.
Gets noisy.
Yep.
Yeah, one or the other.
Yep.
But in either case you know, and it's an easy job to adjust it.
Very much so. Yep. Very easy to adjust.
Gary, one thing I noticed about your operation pulling the tappet cover off, there's a couple of rubber plugs in the back of the cowl. You just pull those out and it gives you access to the bottom bolts. Just an indication of how much thought Honda gives to making sure the engine is easily maintained. So you don't have to mess about with a ring spanner down in there.
No, it's certainly a lot easier to have those 2 little cutaways at the back, and it saves losing the bolt down the back of the motor.
Now Marksy, what we've just shown adjusting the tappets is probably beyond the ambit of most owners. That would be a service organisation's job. But if somebody's away on holidays for a long period of time, puts a lot of hours on their engine, it would be a good idea if they knew how to change the engine oil.
Yeah, it's most important. It's the cheapest insurance you can have for a 4-stroke outboard motor is changing the oil.
Yeah.
You can buy a good quality engine oil these days at a reasonable price. And if you're going away on extended periods of time, we're going to run a few hundred hours up. We show you in the owner's handbook exactly how to change the engine oil on those. But as you said about the tappets, we do advise you to take it to a service centre, Honda authorised service centre.
Gary, the sequence of changing the engine oil?
Very simple, Chris. On the side of the leg you'll find there's a little cap with a screw in it. You undo the screw with just an ordinary straight bladed screwdriver, and inside is you've got your bung.
So you undo the bung, the oil drains.
Oil will pour out.
Gary, that's all drained. You put the plug back in, put the cover plate back on. I was surprised at how much oil came out.
Yeah, the oil capacity of the 75 and 90 is 4.5 litres. Then you add a little bit more. You just top it up when you replace your oil filter.
So about 200 mil.
Something similar.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll look at the oil filter next. Now the oil filter canister is mounted on the front of the crankcase under the cowl. It's a stock automotive item available through automotive outlets everywhere, as is the little cap and spanner which remove it. Okay, now we've looked at simple servicing such as changing the oil within the engine. We've looked at what a service organisation would do as far as adjusting the tappets is concerned. What's left now is to, as far as the top end is concerned, is to synchronise the carburettors and also look at the water pump. Now we're out of time for this week. We'll come back next week and do those operations.
Yep, balancing the carburetors and the water pump is very, very simple, and look forward to it, Chris.
We'll see you next week. We'll see you after the break.